Most people believe memorizing books takes weeks or months, and that photographic memory is something you're either born with or you're not. As a result, they read slowly, forget quickly, and assume that deep retention is impossible for them. In this video, you'll learn a practical method, what I call the Photographic Memory Cheat Code, that allows you to retain the core structure, key ideas, and usable knowledge from a book in just hours, not by memorizing every word, but by training your brain to store information visually, structurally, and efficiently. By the end, you'll know exactly how to approach any book so that it stays in your mind instead of disappearing after the last page. The first truth you need to understand is that most forgetting happens during reading, not after it. When people read line by line without a mental framework, the brain treats the information as temporary. There's no structure, no signal that this matters long term. The cheat code works because it tells the brain, from the very beginning, how the information will be stored. Memory improves, not when you read more, but when you read with intention and architecture. The process starts before you even begin reading. Instead of opening the book and diving in, you spend a few minutes scanning it. You look at the table of contents, chapter titles, headings, diagrams, summaries, and highlighted sections. This creates a mental map. Your brain now knows the shape of the book. Once the shape exists, details have somewhere to attach. This is how photographic memory works in practice, not by capturing pages, but by capturing structure. Once the structure is clear, you shift how you read. You stop reading for words and start reading for ideas per page. Each page usually contains one main point, sometimes two. Your goal is not to absorb every sentence, but to identify the central idea and mentally label it. When the brain detects meaning, it stores faster. When it detects noise, it discards. This alone dramatically increases retention and speed. As you read, you convert ideas into simple visual anchors, not detailed images, not artistic scenes, just rough mental symbols. A ladder might represent progress, a lock might represent limitation, a bridge might represent connection. The brain remembers images far more easily than abstract language. This is one of the oldest memory techniques in history, and it's why people with so-called photographic memory appear to recall content effortlessly. They are remembering pictures, not paragraphs. Another critical part of the cheat code is compression. After finishing a short section or chapter, you pause briefly and mentally compress what you learned into a few core ideas. If a chapter can't be summarized in 3 to 5 thoughts, it wasn't understood properly. Compression forces clarity. The clearer the idea, the stronger the memory. This step replaces rereading entirely. You don't need repetition when understanding is clean. The next element is pattern recognition. As you move through the book, you constantly ask one question: how does this connect to what I've already read? Books are not collections of isolated ideas. They are arguments, systems, or stories unfolding. When you link new ideas to earlier ones, your brain builds a network instead of a list. Networks are remembered. Lists are forgotten. At this stage, something important happens. Reading speed increases naturally because your brain knows what it's looking for. It filters out unnecessary information. You move faster, but with more control. This is not skimming, it's targeted absorption. The brain feels engaged instead of overwhelmed, which keeps attention sharp for longer sessions. To lock the information in, you use active recall in short cycles. After a reading block, you close the book and mentally walk through what you just learned. You don't aim for perfection. You simply recall the main ideas, the structure, and the visuals you created. This acts like a save function. The brain interprets recall as importance and strengthens the memory automatically. Another powerful part of the cheat code is contextual anchoring. You briefly think about where this knowledge fits in your life, your work, or your existing knowledge. Even one real connection multiplies retention. The brain stores useful information far more aggressively than abstract facts. When knowledge has a role, it stays. Now comes the reason this method feels like photographic memory. After a few hours using this process, you can mentally flip through the book, not page by page, but idea by idea. You remember where concepts appeared, how chapters flowed, and how arguments developed. You may not recall exact sentences, but you retain what matters, and that's the difference between memorization and mastery. This method works especially well because it respects how memory actually functions. The brain remembers meaning, structure, and imagery, not raw text. When you align your reading with these principles, retention increases dramatically without effort or strain. This is why some people appear to absorb books instantly. They're not reading more, they're reading correctly. To use this cheat code effectively, you also need to manage energy. Short, focused reading sessions outperform long, exhausting ones. After 30 to 45 minutes, you take a brief pause. This prevents cognitive fatigue and allows consolidation. Memory improves during rest, not just effort. Over time, this approach changes how you think. You stop fearing large books. You stop rereading endlessly. You trust your brain to store information because you're giving it the right signals. Learning becomes lighter, faster, and more controlled. Memorizing books in hours doesn't mean remembering every word. It means retaining the essence, structure, and usable knowledge, the parts that actually matter. That's what this photographic memory cheat code delivers. It's not magic, it's alignment. When your method matches your brain's design, memory stops being a struggle and becomes automatic. If you apply this consistently, you'll notice something powerful. Books no longer feel like information dumps. They feel like conversations your mind remembers naturally. And once that happens, learning accelerates in a way most people never experience.